What is up? Welcome to the Toxic Man Podcast. This is going to be episode 5. I want to say thank you for showing up. Appreciate you listening. I want to talk a little bit about the term toxic masculinity. There is a misnomer out there that just because you're a traditional male, that you are bad for society, which is completely untrue. They've taken that'd be the left and liberals, have taken masculinity. Well, first of all, they started back when they started with gender politics. Once they got started on gender politics, first it was, radical feminism, not just advancing, women's places in society, which obviously we have no problem with. If a lady wants to go out and get a job, she can get a job. If she wants to stay home, she can stay home. If she wants to try and be a CEO, try and be a CEO. But she should get that based on her merits, not on her gender. That's the same with the president. If she wants to be a president, she should get that based on her merits, not just because of her gender. So once they started with radical feminism, it's evolved over into the pay grade. So then the left is saying that, well, women aren't paid enough. They're got unequal pay. There's pay gaps. Well, yeah, there's a pay gap, but that's because there's a lot of women who will quit work after they get pregnant and stay home with the baby for a few years, and then once the child gets in school, they'll go back to work, um, and therefore they have to restart everything again. So yeah, that creates a pay gap. Generally, guys don't quit work and stay home with the baby. In some cases, they do, um, but if they did more often, there probably wouldn't be such a pay gap. But anyway, that's a whole other issue for a whole other time. Um, what we're looking at today is the lies of toxic masculinity, the term itself. Um, there is a movement against traditional masculinity. These leftists want to take being a man and turn it into something political. Well, making gender political is absurd. But the more that I see out there, the more the left tries to make everything out of politics, and it's so aggravating. It's so just disgusting. No one wants everything to be about politics. People are tired of politics. It's constantly crammed down our throats nowadays. And the last thing we want is the culture to change because of political agenda. And that's what that term of toxic masculinity is. They're trying to get you so sick and tired of politics that you kind of zone out of it. And in the meantime, for you that out there that care about society and the culture that you live in, you get kind of zoned out. You forget about it. You don't care anymore. Meanwhile, while you're distracted, turned off, things change, society wise and culturally. And then what happens? 10 years down the road, the world you once knew is no longer the world you live in. And then you wonder, how do we get here? Well, by then it's too late. So they know that strong men who have traditional values, traditional leanings, they are the ones that get in the way of their political agenda. Men who care about their families and their loved ones and the generations to come, they're the ones who push back and fight back against the political war on our culture and our society. So strong men who who are masculine, um, they're a threat. They are a threat to the leftist agenda. They're a threat to the changing of our culture, to the feminizing of men, to the blurring the lines between gender, um, to everything. They're everything that the left wants. They can't accomplish when there's men who are willing to stand up against them and push back. Um, the left is full of beta boys, so they have to use politics, they have to use shame, they have to use ridicule, which is one of Saul Alinsky's tactics in the Rules for Radicals book. Um, they have to use all those things to get what they want. So we as men who are traditional masculine men who believe in two genders, who believe in um, God, who believe in guns, who just believe in having a strong ethical existence and choice making and strong morals, um, we're a threat to them, and we damage what they want to do. They can't handle it. They can't handle the pushback, and anyone with any logic and sense can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to change the culture, because when you change the culture in a society of a country, you can change everything else about it. You can bring it down from the inside, so to speak. So, strong men is what made America. Strong men is what's maintained America. Um, and the left is using a bunch of politics to try and hurt America and try and bring us down to something that we're not meant to be. We got to maintain strength, got to continue to be strong, and got to continue to fight back against these changes. So I have this article up from Psychology Today, and it says the title of it is "What is Healthy Masculinity?" See, this is what they do. This is what they do. They try to they're trying to change men. They're trying to make men more feminine, and as opposed to being you have your masculine and you have your feminine. It's funny because on the left you have the left will say, well, men need to be more feminine, but they never say, well, women need to be more manly. So if one needs to be more feminine, why doesn't the other need to be more manly? The point is they've got the women. They can manipulate women easy. So they come after men because men tend to be stubborn in certain ways. So the first four lines here, it says self-reliance. So if you rely on yourself and you don't rely on the freaking government and you don't rely on others, and you're worried, you take it upon yourself to be the leader of your family, that's okay. That, according to this article, is a problem. It's not good for you. Emotional control is another one. So they take that and they say, well, you have more control of your emotion, and that's a bad thing. How is that a bad thing? If you have a couple, if you have a man and a woman, and the woman the man is with tends to be more emotional, then what good does it do? How is it helpful to have two emotional people? We need to have somebody needs to be in control, needs to be in control of their emotions, needs to be stoic at times. Um, and it goes on to say that traditional masculinity, I'll just go and read it. Um, okay. Psychologist Joel Wong recently examined, quote, traditional masculine characteristics, including the four above, in a meta analysis of 74 studies of more than 19,000 men. A meta analysis is a statistical summary of the combined results of multiple studies. Traditionally masculine characteristics were associated with poorer mental health, including depression, distress, and low self esteem. Dr. Wong concluded that traditional masculine characteristics may interfere with men's relationships with others, and poor relationships may result in poor mental health. I'm not going to bore you with reading the rest of this article, but the point is, in this entire thing, is that traditional masculinity will kill you, and it's bad for you personally. It causes you depression. It's all a bunch of crap. It's all a bunch of lies. Um, it, it's just to it's to change men, and men don't need to be changed. Ultimately, what it comes down to is, as a person, you need to be moral. You need to be ethical. You need to take care of others. You need to protect others. You need to be kind. Um, but they sit there and they come after traditional masculinity as if it's something bad. But in this article, it doesn't say that women should ever be more masculine. Why is that? Why do men have to change their traditional ways, but women don't? That's exactly my point. And this article just proves it, that if this was a true study, like a true article that was meant to be unbiased and have characteristics and information in there, I guess I should say, that is beneficial to us as men, or us as just a human race, then you would have the flip side of it. Like, well, do women need to be more masculine? And if so, in what way? Um, so you can't have one without the other. You got to have both. You can't have a bunch of feminized men running around here, because it doesn't do any good for anybody. Um, you can't have beta boys won't go out here and fight wars. Beta boys won't protect the weak. You got to have strong masculine men who are stoic, who are unemotional, especially when emotions aren't needed in a situation. When there needs to be calm thought. Um, you may get mad at me for saying that. I'm sorry, but biology shows what I said. Biology has proven what I say. I'm not saying this is 100% for everybody the same way. Obviously, you can't speak in universal statements here, but the majority of the time, um, you're going to need a man in certain situations. For instance, my wife and I watched a um, a show on what's this show? It's more of a documentary on Amazon Prime, and it was a based over in Afghanistan, and during the war, the peak of it, and there was a firefight, and my wife told me, she said, "There's no way that I could deal with that as a woman over there, because there were a couple of guys who got killed in that firefight, and hours later, after the battle was over, and everyone had come down off their high, their adrenaline rush, the guys are sitting there and they're eating MREs." And she's like, "There's no way. There's no way." She said she'd be too emotional. She'd be a basket case. She couldn't handle it. Guys have a way that they can compartmentalize it. And in the heat of battle, in wars, and other maybe stateside protection instances, when a guy sees someone younger getting robbed, picked on, whatever the case is, my wife's 100 pounds. She'll sit there and tell you straight up, "There's no way I could do anything about that." She's like, "I need a masculine, manly man who could help that person, who could take care of that person in a crisis time like that." And but the left wants us to have a bunch of betas who are feminized or effeminate, and they aren't assertive, and they don't lead and protect. Um, so we need more masculine men, and we need to not let the left win this. We need to stand strong, stand up, and stand against what the left is trying to do to us as men. It's an attack on our culture, and it's all for political gain. In the end, it's all about politics. Um, Masculine men get in the way of liberals and Democrat policies because they stand up against them. If they're truly a conservative masculine man, um, we need to make sure that we maintain focus on what is going on, and to make sure that we don't get overtaken by a bunch of leftists that want to change who we are as men. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our Feminist Freakout section. All right. Um, so in this article from Breitbart, it is titled Feminist Author Fantasizes About Killing a Certain Number of Men Each Week to Defeat Patriarchy. All right, so feminist author Mona Eltahawy raised the idea of killing a, quote, certain number of men each week, end of quote, in order to ensure the end of patriarchy in an interview promoting a new book that defends the use of violence against men. Quote, I ask people to imagine, now I'm using this word imagine, and I'm underlining it 3 times, a scenario in which we kill a certain number of men each week, end quote, said Mona in a recent interview with the left-wing state-funded Canadian broadcaster CBC. Quote, how many men must we kill until the patriarchy sits across the table from us and says, okay, stop. What must we do so you can stop this killing? End quote. As CBC describes it, Eltahawy's new book calls for women to, quote, harness anger, attention-seeking, ambition, power, profanity, lust, and violence in order to truly be liberated from what she describes as the tentacles of the octopus known as the patriarchy. This is how crazy they are. They want to murder men simply because they are men. To stop the patriarchy, which they still can't fully describe, and I'm rubbing my head here because this is so stupid, it's making my head hurt. They can't fully describe what the patriarchy is, other than it's a man that leads his family's house. But obviously they don't see a way to stop the man, so they must murder the man. And that goes back to my point, what I was saying earlier about the left. They can't stop a man from being a man. So they do what they can do through indoctrination, through public schools, pop culture, and higher education to destroy who men are. And it's not a quick process. It's a very slow process. It's kind of like the analogy I always use is if you take a frog and you throw it into boiling water, it's going to hop right out. However, if you take a pot of cold water and you put the frog in it, and you set it on the stove and you slowly increase the temperature over time, then what's going to happen is that frog is going to cook itself, and it doesn't even realize it's being cooked because it's slowly adjusting. Because it's a cold-blooded animal, it's going to slowly adjust to the temperature. And it's the same here. The left knows is if we can do this when they're young, we can slowly over time get one by one child by one child, and we'll make them think that masculinity and being a man and leading their families and being the patriarch is a bad thing. So we'll make them apologetic, we'll weaken them, we'll feminize them, emasculate them, and it'll take this down. It'll stop this. So now this author, she says the fact that she's even just considering it, that fantasize, she's using the word fantasize as a way to say her feelings without getting in trouble, I guess. Really looking that crazy, which apparently she's a nutcase. Because now you have these. This is just a start. It always starts like this. It's the fringe. You have a fringe leftist lunatic, and just every little by little they get accepted more and more until it's no longer a bad thing to suggest or say. So now we're going to move on to the Toxic Man Award segment of this podcast, and this is going to be a group one, kind of like our last podcast with the all the men and even women that help back at the nursing stations and stuff and infirmaries. back in World War II. But this is going to be a group one, and this is going to be so Beto Robert Francis O'Rourke, the fake Mexican. He is on this massive kick in his soon-to-be failed presidential campaign. I don't know why anyone's even giving him money anymore. It's a waste. But he's on this kick that he's going to take your AR-15s, he's going to take your AK-47s, and he's just an idiot. So he thinks he's going to do all this, but he's not, because number one, he's never going to be president. Number two, we have a Second Amendment in the Constitution. Number three, nobody in their right mind is going to go around door to door. They'll disobey orders before they go do that, because technically you're violating constitutional rights, so therefore you're covered. Most policies and law enforcement agencies are going to say no, and there's nothing that can happen because it's unlawful, and they can ignore unlawful, immoral, or unethical orders by a supervisor or command staff member. But anyway, I'm going to give the Toxic Man Award to all the men and the women who have openly voiced their opposition against fake Mexican Beto and told him to go pound sand, and that they're not giving up their AR-15s and their AK-47s, because those are our tools for freedom. That guy is a freaking tyrant. He wants to take your guns so he can eventually just take government control over everybody. And so therefore, the Toxic Man Award goes to the men and women who openly tell Beto to pound sand. So that's going to be the end of our podcast today. It's not very long. I tried to get Drew in it this week, but he's wiped out. He's since he's retired gone into a new job. He's doing landscaping. It's wearing him out. So I want to get a podcast out there though to talk about a little bit to everybody, and I want to give a shout out to Dipstick Branding at dip123.com. They are the people who brand all of our stuff for us. Great guys. Danny's the guy I work with the most. His brother Kyle's a good guy too. But if you ever need anything branded, any promotional stuff, any, just anything at all for any special occasions, give those guys a shout. They are located in Anderson, South Carolina, but they will deliver stuff to people. So hit them up. Danny is the point of contact there. Send them an email, call them. Also like to give a shout out to Iron Covenant SC. That is their Instagram handle. Will is the owner of Iron Covenant. He is a veteran, and he's very big into weightlifting. He's got a really cool gym. It's really old school. That's what I like about it. I like the traditional old school look to it. Give them a shout out. Give them a look. Man, he's a really, really cool dude. Really good guy to talk to. So give him a shout as well. Tell him you heard about us if you hit him up. Same thing with Dip, Stick, and Danny. Also, we have a sponsorship here with the FJ, one of our Instagram buddies, Mac. Man, he's a really good dude. I like him a lot. Really cool to talk to. He's really into his FJ vehicle, and you can hit him up, give him a follow at FJStorm_Trooper. That's FJStorm_Trooper on Instagram. Some really cool pictures of his FJ out in the mud, in the dirt, out in the wild, doing some toxic manly stuff. But he's really cool. I've known him for a couple years now, and we got a partnership with him. That's going to be the end of the podcast today. Appreciate you listening. Leave us some comments. Come give us a follow. We're on Facebook at we're the Toxic Man. We're on Instagram at the Toxic Man _. We have our website is www.thetoxicman.net. We have shirts there. We have stainless steel glass, ware. We have some AR magazines. We got some bourbon glasses, a couple different styles of bourbon glasses. We're working on a new clothing line for the ladies, the ones that love their toxic men and support their traditional masculinity. So give us a follow, give us a like, come check out our website. We really appreciate your support. Really want to thank you for listening and for everything out there. And we just want to let you know that traditional masculinity is what's going to win, and we just have to actively push back against this crap. And our society and our culture will be better for it. So take care and stay toxic.